Part 4, changes I disliked. Mostly it was Nuke and Calypso and also Cersei. So both Calypso and Cersei are very beautiful, dominant, sexual women who use magic to get what they want. They're very unapologetic about it too. And neither of their characters were like this in the movie. Both of them were died down a lot. For Cersei, instead of turning men into pigs because she genuinely believes they're pigs, it's presented as she turned them into pigs as a sort of like preemptive attack to make sure they couldn't sexually assault her. Cersei is not this dominant, beautiful woman surrounded by other nymphs who is super powerful. She's presented as this lonely old woman who lives in the woods who is protecting herself and is scared. And that is what she did, and that is why she does what she does. I do think there were hints about the nymphs. There were a bunch of really big cats, and the gazelle that Odysseus killed turned into a person. So I'm guessing that the animals were nymphs and that they can change back and forth and that they were like in their animal forms because men were around and they were scared. But it's still Cersei is still mostly presented as someone who does things out of fear, not necessarily because she's powerful and she could. And there was an aspect of fear. There was a fear element in the original book, but it's much more died down. It's less completely because of fear, and also because she believes that they deserve it and because she has the power to do that, so why not? And that's sort of how it's presented in the Odyssey. But in Nolan's movie, it's more just she's scared. And with Calypso, she was nuked even worse. So originally, Calypso is kind of, I don't want to say evil, but she's definitely, selfish. She's definitely doing things for her own reasons and a little diabolical. And she's keeping Odysseus because she wants him there. And she is kind of keeping him trapped, and he wants to leave. And in the movie, it's not that. I mean, for one, Cersei and Calypso are died down because there's no goddesses, and because they are both technically considered goddesses. And because Nolan didn't want any goddesses, they both had to be neutered by a lot, I guess. So Cersei is just this witch in the woods, and Calypso is basically just this lady who lives on an island. And that's what she's presented as. She's never acknowledged as trapped or anything like that. She just sort of lives there, and Odysseus just washed up one day. And then and she's presented as mostly benevolent, that she gives him the lotus to help him heal, but it messes with his memories. In the movie, she specifically tells him to stop eating the lotus, and I think they could have switched it. They could have kept some of her sinisterness and instead have Odysseus stop eating the lotus himself. Like maybe he's hiding it, maybe he's pretending to eat it, but she doesn't notice, and she's pressing to see if he remembers because she's worried that he'll leave if he does, and he'll just lie and say, no, I still don't remember anything. What are you talking about? And then we still cut away to the memories anyway, to prove that he's lying. Like, there were ways they could have done this, and they could have kept Calypso's character. So I didn't like that. I felt like they were neutered. Calypso and Cersei were too neutered, and it was an insult to their characters. So that is, I didn't like that. I think that it could have been done differently. Other things I didn't like. We completely skipped over Laertes, who is Odysseus' father, who is actually still alive, by the way. He just lives out in the woods, kind of. And we completely skipped over. He wasn't even a character in the movie, and I felt that was kind of weird and kind of mean to Odysseus personally, and even the rest of his family, too, even though Laertes does not really actively help Telemachus or Penelope, but I do think it was weird that they cut Laertes completely. They could have put him in there. There was also this weird thing where they called they kept calling it Zeus's law, even though there's a Greek word for it called xenia. I don't know why they didn't use the word. My guess is that maybe they were scared that it would draw attention to the fact that everyone's speaking English or something because it's a Greek word, but I think they could have used the Greek word xenia and been fine with it. I also would have liked to see the scene with the plow and the flashbacks. So originally, when Menelaus and Agamemnon come calling for help after Helen is taken, Odysseus plays crazy, and he pretends he's too crazy to go to war. He's like, no, I'm not a king, I'm a farmer. And he takes a plow and he starts plowing the fields. And this one guy, whose name I forget, he's like, I know how to prove that he's faking it. And then he takes baby Telemachus and puts him in front of the plow, which, one, insane. If the guy actually was crazy, he would have plowed over his own son. But Odysseus wasn't crazy, so he stopped, and then he went to war. And I would have liked that scene. I mean, they had flashback scenes anyway. I think that they could have thrown that in there instead of doing it the way they did, which was just a sort of weird discussion between Odysseus and Penelope instead about why he had to go to war.